Is he one of the ones that need to be sworn in?
No.
He is not. We do know,
Okay.
we do know Miss Wilkins is not coming, and she is one that needs to be sworn in. So I guess that'll happen at a later date.
Okay.
But everybody else is here then is on your list. So
Okay.
we can get going. Let me see. Whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is the Township of Hillsborough Environmental Commission meeting. It's the reorganization meeting for the year 2021. This meeting is being conducted virtually. First of all, call to order. The reorganization meeting of Hillsborough Township Environmental Commission, as I noted, will be conducted virtually. All board members and staff will be participating remotely. The public will be given an opportunity to participate remotely through the advertised Zoom link or optional phone numbers identified in the public meeting notice. Meeting documents have been made available at https hillsboroughNJ.civicclerk.com in accordance with the public meeting notice. Let's have a salute to the flag. If you have a flag in your home, or if not, have one on the screen there. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting has been duly advertised according to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, also known as the Sunshine Law. Notice of this meeting has been provided to the officially designated newspapers, to the Township Clerk, posted on the bulletin board at the Hillsborough Township Municipal Complex, and posted to the Township's website. Additional notice has been provided to communicate that this meeting is being conducted according to the Governor's executive orders and pursuant to Public Law 2020 C.11, which allows for meetings to be conducted electronically. Okay, before we begin any business, we will have the oath to the newly elected members. And that includes seat 1, which would be Louise Wilkins. I guess she's not here. Seat 3, Neil Julian. Seat 7, Steve Mastropolito, and alternate number 1, Bob Breitling. And let me, bear with me 1 second.
Hey, Debbie.
Yeah.
Tom said he apologized, but he will not be able to make it tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Sorry, bear with me 1 sec. Just had it up and now I lost it. Okay, I'll ask those that need to be sworn in to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Neil Julian,
I,
Do
Steve
solemnly
Mastropolito,
swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same
and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States
in the United States
and in this state
and in the state
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all the duties
all the
all the
duties
duties
of the Office of Economic Environmental Commission, Hillsborough Environmental Commission,
of the office of the Hillsborough Environmental Commission
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
best
So help
Thank you very much. David, have we distributed the official signatory pages?
I'll ask that to the folks who just took the oath. Neil, for instance, you've got it. Okay, so you'll just need
Okay.
fill them out and send them in, please.
Yeah, if you could email those to the board would be great. Okay. Back to my agenda.
Okay. Would you like me to call the roll, Frank?
I'm sorry?
Would you like me to call the roll?
Please, yes.
Okay. Louise Wilkins, Joanne Bertolini, and Thomas Almendinger are absent. Neil Julian,
here.
Michael Foley,
Here.
Deborah Boyer,
Here.
Steve Mastropolito,
Here.
Robert Britting,
Here.
Dr. Christopher Abrupta,
Here.
and Deputy Mayor Frank Delcor,
Here.
and myself and Fred Kinsler are here on for staff.
Yes, we are.
Okay. Thank you, David. I would now like to announce that the chairperson, which is a mayoral appointment, is Deb Boyer. Deb, congratulations. I think this is about the 37th year or so. You've done.
We were just talking about how long it's been. We're pretty close, actually, Frank.
Yeah, so we greatly appreciate yours and everyone's volunteer efforts on this very important commission. So thank you for being willing to be chairperson again, and I will turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you. I want to thank the Township Committee for their faith in me. Thank you again. Okay, so we have to start with the election of the vice chair. So at this time, I would like to open nominations for the vice chair.
I'll nominate Michael Foley for vice chair.
I will second.
Who said that?
Steve.
See.
Mr. Mashpoli.
Okay, let's do a roll call. Now, it's my understanding, Dave, that if we have enough of the regular members, the alternates do not vote.
Well, they basically move up to fill a seat of a regular member that's not there. So in this case, you could move one up.
Oh, okay,
Actually, they could both vote.
that's fine. Okay, all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I think they both can vote because Joanne
Yeah.
and Louise aren't here.
You got three people, three regulars are missing, so you can move the two up.
Okay.
Right.
All right, so let's see. Nominations made. All right, so let's do a roll call. Neil,
Yes.
Michael, Mike Foley,
Yes.
I am a yes. Steve Mastropolito,
Yes.
Robert Britting,
Yes.
Dr. Abrupta.
Yes.
After hearing all the nominations, hearing no other nominations, I call for a motion to close the nominations and acclaim Mike Foley as vice chair of the 2021 Environmental Commission. I need a motion for that.
I'll make a motion to close.
It was Neil, right?
Yep. Yes.
I'll second that motion.
And who said that?
Mr. Mashpoli.
I can't write and look up at the same time. Okay.
I'll let you know.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I need a roll call. Neil, Julian,
Yes.
Mike Foley,
Yes.
I say yes. Steve Mastropolito,
Yes.
Robert Britting,
Yes.
Dr. Abrupta.
Yes.
Congratulations, Mr. Foley, being our vice chair. Nominations open for commission secretary. Steve's holding his breath on this one.
I could do it again. I know I dropped the ball a bit at the end of the year there with homeschooling.
That's a
But
understand.
I understand there's a light at the end of this tunnel.
Not really, but
I think it might just be a train coming at me, but
Right, yeah, that's exactly.
All right, I need a nomination for, does anybody want to nominate Steve?
I nominate Steve.
I'll second.
All right, who said that?
That was
Neil said
Robert Brindley and
Oh,
Mr.
Robert.
Foley.
that? All right, so Neil,
yes.
Michael,
Yes.
yes, Steve,
yes.
Robert Britting,
Yes.
Dr. Abrupta.
Yes.
After all the nominations are in, hearing no other nominations, I call a motion to close the nominations and acclaim Steve Mastropolito Secretary of the 2021 Environmental Commission. I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Neil. Need a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we'll take Robert. All right, roll call. Neil,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Amy, yes. Steve Mastropolito,
Yes.
Robert Britting,
Yes.
Dr. Abrupta.
Yes.
Congratulations to Steve for being our secretary once again. So at this time, we have to look at the adopting of the resolutions for the rules of order, the designation of the official newspaper, fixing of charges for notices of meeting, the schedule of meetings, the resolution of the open meetings policy, the acceptance of the annual report. So what we usually do is we look at them all together, and then unless there's we need to have a discussion if there's any changes that anybody wants to make to any of these, and then we can go ahead and do a roll call. So the resolution for adopting the rules of order has been slightly changed because of the virtual meeting in accordance with the governor's executive orders. There was a change to the order of business. Instead of calling it calling of the roll, it was called roll call. The sixth one talks about if you miss 2 or more regular meetings within a 2-month period without notifying, you're subject to review. Resolution of the designating of this official newspaper is the Hillsborough Beacon with the Courier News as an alternate newspaper. Fixing of charges for notice of meeting. I don't think we get involved with that, but I guess we have to, that has to be part of what we do. Setting the meeting schedule. And the meeting schedule is listed here. So as of right now, we only have 1 meeting a month. But we are, in one of the resolutions here, are allowed to, so the second resolution says that we can call special meetings, which we have done this past year because of the number of applicants that have had to be reviewed. So we have added additional meetings. And if we need to do that again in 2021, we certainly can do that. The schedule of the meeting has also been updated to include the information about the virtual meetings. And then the last one is the resolution of the open meeting policy. And again, that has been changed to account for the governor's executive orders and the remote in person and not meeting at the complex. Does anyone have any questions or discussions about any of these resolutions? I think it's fairly straightforward. It's pretty standard as of last year. So with that said, I will need a motion to adopt these resolutions.
Make a motion to adopt the resolutions.
Can I have a second? on that motion? Thank you. And the roll call. Louise is not here. Joanne is not here. Neil,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
I am a yes. Mr. Helmending is not here. Mr. Master Polito,
Yes.
Mr. Britting,
Yes.
and Dr. Abrupta.
Yes.
So we have adopted all the resolutions in the reorg. I don't think we have an annual report. I haven't, Dave, do we have an annual report?
Yeah, it should have been in your packet. Or on the, Clark, did you
Yeah.
not get it? We could do it at the next meeting.
I have that.
You have it?
Yeah.
I don't have it.
Okay.
Did we get a packet in the mail or is it?
It was probably on Civic Clerk. We can get you we can do the annual report next time. That's okay.
Why don't we do that? We'll hold off on that.
Okay.
All right, I need a motion to adjourn the reorganization meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Mike.
I'll second.
7:21, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Frank, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Boyer, for doing all those resolutions in one shot. Because every other commission has taken them one and one. Takes a lot longer to vote that way, but thank you very much.
We do it that way, and no one has said I can't do it that way. So that's how we've been doing it.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet everybody. Looking forward to working with you guys.
And it's nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us. Welcome aboard. Do you go by Robert or Bob?
Robert's fine. Either one.
All right. I go back and forth to
Yeah, it's fine.
the way I call people and what I call them. All right.
Debbie,
Yes.
Debbie, if I may, just so as anybody's online, the regular meeting will be starting at 7:30 in case
Okay.
anyone's out there.
Okay. So we have a couple of minutes.
Mr. Maskey, it says on the agenda that it's immediately following, so I don't know that we
Oh, it
have to
does.
wait.
Okay.
Yes, on the agenda, it says immediately following the 7 o'clock reorg. So just, that's what it says on the agenda and what was noticed, I believe.
We usually go right in from one into the other.
That's fine.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to cause any problems, but that's what it says on the agenda. And I think that's what was noticed. So,
Okay.
Let me just double check.
okay, thank you. And Debbie, I have the forms that Deborah had sent me on the campus stuff. If you need me to share my screen while you guys discuss the old business stuff, just let me know and I'll be able to share it and zoom in on things if you need to. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do not have.
Yeah, David, I will listen in on, but I need to step away for about 10 minutes. I'll be back.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, so Deb, whenever you're ready, you can.
I did not get on to Civic Clerk. Want to look at the minutes. Oh, they're not on here. Okay. All right. All right. 7:24. We will call the regular Environmental Commission meeting for January 25th, 2021 to order. This meeting will be conducted virtually. All commission members and staff will be participating remotely. The public will be given the opportunity to participate remotely through the advertised Zoom link or choice of phone numbers identified in the public meeting notice. The public should use the raise hand feature in Zoom or *9 if participating by telephone. to indicate they would like to be recognized to speak. Meeting and application documents have been made available at https://hillsboroughNJ.civicclerk.com in accordance with the public meeting notice. Let's stand for the salute to the flag. Perfect, excellent. Pledge allegiance to the flag,
Flag,
United States of
States of
America,
America.
and to the
To the
republic
republic.
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting has been duly advertised according to Section 5 of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, the Sunshine Law. Notice of this meeting has been provided to the Hillsborough Beacon and the Courier News, to the Township Clerk, posted on the bulletin board at the Hillsborough Township Municipal Complex, and posted on the Township's website. Additional notice has been provided to communicate that this meeting is being conducted in accordance with the governor's executive orders and pursuant to Public Law 2020 C11, which allows for meetings to be conducted electronically and pursuant to the local finance notices recently established. Roll call: Louise Wilkins, Joanne Bertolini, Neil Julian,
Here.
Mike Foley.
Here.
I'm here. Thomas Almendinger, Stephen Mastropolito,
Here.
Robert Britting,
Here.
Dr. Abrupta,
Here.
Mayor Delcor. And township staff, we have David Maskey and Fred Kinsler.
I am here.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here. So we have consideration of meeting minutes. Does everyone have a copy of those minutes? I don't, and I don't know why I don't. October 26th. Are these on Civic Clerk?
They should be. I'm sure Deborah provided everybody with the full packet.
Yeah, they're on Civic Clerk.
Yep.
Are they?
Mhm.
Where
Yeah.
are they?
In agendas, right?
In agendas?
That's where I'm seeing it at the top.
And you can click on them or no, they're attached.
There's my first time seeing it, so I'm looking at it. Well, I can hear them. Is it all right if I share my screen in this situation, or?
I can't, Chairman, I can't click on them either, but maybe if you download the packet, it's probably there. Unless you want me to allow them to share screens and you want to look at it that way.
I mean, as long as someone has a copy of it that they can tell me who was at that meeting in October.
I can tell you who's eligible to vote.
Go ahead.
Yes, so for the October 26th minutes, it's Mr. Julian, Mr. Foley, Mr. Mastropolito, Mr. Abrupta, and yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So do you all have a copy of those minutes?
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So if you could just review them and let me know if there's any changes or comments on them.
I'll make a motion.
Basically everyone present except for Mr. Britting.
So I'll make a motion to pass the October 26th, 2020 meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Any objections? No? Okay, so the minutes from October 26, 2020 have been approved. And where are we on the November 9th, Dave?
Everybody present except Mr. Britting.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to pass the December 9th, 2020 minute meetings.
November 9th?
November 9th.
Do I get a second on that?
I'll second.
Who said that, Steve?
Steve.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments or questions on it? All right, so the November 9th minutes have been approved. And December 14th,
Same situation, everyone present except for Mr. Britting.
thank you.
I'll make a motion to pass the December 14th meeting minutes.
A second?
I'll second.
Any questions, comments? No? All right, so the minutes from December 14th have been approved. I think that we're still waiting for the September minutes. So if we can get that for the next meeting, that would be helpful. At this point, Mr. Kinsler, I think we need to open up to the public. If there's any business from the floor that's not on the
Sure.
agenda.
Okay, so anybody from the public who wishes to or has a question for matters that are not on the agenda this evening, you can please raise your hand. If we call on you, please state your name and address for the record, spelling your last name, please. Again, this is for matters not on the agenda. I see none, Chairwoman, so you may proceed.
Thank you. All right. So we have no review of applications, and the consideration of old business is what we have on the agenda for this evening. And this is Campus Associates. And we have newly submitted items. So for anybody who's not aware, and we'll bring Robert up to speed on things, Campus Associates is a housing development that's going to be on Campus Drive, which is sort of behind the temple and off of Harvard Way. It's 4 buildings, and I believe a portion of them are affordable housing. There's a lot of, there's a development directly behind that between 206, between the temple and the property. Right behind that is a development of homes off of on Johansson Drive. They have some flooding issues, so they are they have been very they're aware of the submission, and they have been to the planning board, and they have been to this commission to voice their concerns. We have walked the site twice. Dr. Abrupta and myself walked it in November, and Neil and Mike and Chris walked it again on Friday. So we have some new items that were submitted. There's a letter that was submitted by Equal Sciences on January 13th. Yes.
I just wanted to make a note that Mr. Delcourt is back, so I don't know if you want to make note for your record.
Very good.
Sorry to
Thank you.
interrupt.
No, that's fine. Thank you. That's fine. I understand. So they submitted a drainage exhibit, which is from Van Cleef. There's a DOT drainage and utility plan prepared by Louis Berger and Associates, and a copy of the freshwater wetlands permits numbers 2 and 10A, and a transition area waiver averaging plan, and flood hazard area verification and individual permit. So the discussion is around the issue that is currently at hand is whether the water course that bisects the property and whether it is considered a stream or not under our ordinance. And based on the information that we had from our November site walk and from the site walk that was performed on Friday, and photographs which we will be providing to the planning board, the commission still believes that it is considered a stream, that the stream corridor applies, and that they are required 150-foot buffer on both sides. So that is currently where we are at. And I just want to grab my notes on this. So we'll open it up for discussion amongst ourselves and anyone else who is on the call. So does anybody want to add anything to that? Either Mike or Neil or Chris, since you were the ones who walked the site on Friday?
Yeah, I guess I'll start. It's Mike. First, just as a point of clarification, Debbie, I know you're aware, but just to make sure everybody on the call is aware, that NJDEP permit application that we received a copy of in the PDF format, that was the original application that was submitted this past July.
Is that you're sort of cutting out?
2020
Hey, Mike.
to DEP.
Mr. Foley, this is Mr. Kinsler. You were breaking up there. Maybe you could repeat what you said, please.
All right. Sorry, hold on a sec.
That's okay.
Just adjusting my silly headset here. Debbie, can you hear me now?
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Just real quick, that NJDEP permit application that we received the PDF of, and that was posted to Civic Clerk. Just for clarification, that permit application was the same permit, the original permit application that the applicant submitted this past July 2020. Just with COVID and being remote and everything, I had asked Debbie to post it on Civic Clerk for easier accessibility. So it's nothing new in that regard from July. It's actually been brought to our attention by the applicant. I think it was at the last EC meeting and the last planning board meeting. They confirmed that they actually withdrew that application from NJDEP, which
what
happens.
application is this, Mike?
That's the flood hazard area, individual permit, freshwater wetland, general permit, flood hazard area verification. It was
So
all
it's
one packet.
One packet. And they withdrew that?
Yeah, to my knowledge, that's my understanding is, and they, I don't know officially if they I knew they withdrew the flood hazard area. I assume they withdrew the entire thing. Regardless, once they do resubmit, and I'm sure they will resubmit, they'll have to, let us know again with any changes that application was resubmitted with. So again, just a point of clarification. I didn't want anybody to think that was a new application that came in. It was just a copy of the previous one that we requested for ease of use due to being remote and COVID. So just FYI. Regarding the stream at Campus Drive, as you noted, myself, Chris, and Neil looked at it this past Friday. Yeah, and we did take a few, walk the site, took some pictures, and based on our interpretation of the stream corridor ordinance, we still believe that the stream falls under our stream corridor ordinance, and that the applicant needs to address that stream corridor ordinance in his application. That the stream is the naturally occurring or man-altered stream. It's identified on the surface water quality standards as a stream, the National Hydrography Data Set as a stream. It's got bed and banks, and NJDEP as per the applicant, is taking jurisdiction of that water feature as a regulated water. So putting that all together, we still are of the opinion that that stream falls under the Hillsborough Township Stream Corridor Ordinance.
Has
And I don't know if you are-
has the DEP designated that as a regulated water?
They have, according to the applicant. I have not seen anything else. And, usually, in my experience, when an applicant in general withdraws an application, that's usually due to the fact that and a one or more than one issues being worked out and trying to be resolved between DEP and the applicant. There is a 90-day with a possible 30-day extension clock that the DEP needs to review that permit within.
Mhm.
And if happens all the time, if an applicant, is still working on that, the DEP actually, I don't know if request is the right word, encourages the applicant to withdraw, because if they don't, then the DEP has to make a decision, and that decision would usually be in the negative for the applicant. So it's to the applicant's benefit for them to withdraw that application, revise what they need to revise, or come to an agreement with DEP on the outstanding unresolved issues, and then they'll resubmit and have a new 90-day clock for the DEP to review. So the fact that they withdraw the application is not uncommon. Like I said, that once they resolve or are able to get new information or whatever they need to do with coordinating with DEP, I expect them to resubmit shortly. And when they do so, they'll again have to notify as per public notice requirements to the township clerk, this commission, public property owners within 200 feet. Because there is, as with all permanent applications to DEP, there's a public comment period associated with that.
Right, okay.
Neil or Chris, that's all I had to say about the field visit. I don't know if any of you wanted to add or say anything.
I think that the common theme in layman's terms also comes up, and it's come up at the planning board, and it might have come up at the environmental commission before, is the difference between an LOI and what we're talking about here, which is the Freshlands water permit. So the applicant has told everybody that they have submitted the LOI, and the discussion has been that because they've submitted the LOI, therefore that would determine the regulated waterway. And what we're saying, that's not the case. And because the application was withdrawn, there's no kind of official way from a regulatory standpoint, the DEP can actually either say yes or no if it is a regulated waterway. So is that right, Mike?
Well, somewhat. The LOI is the purpose of an LOI is to determine wetlands and stay open waters and wetland transition areas boundaries for a site under the Freshwater Wetland Protection Act rules, period. Regulated waters are determined for a site by either a flood hazard area verification, flood hazard area applicability determination, or when the DEP reviews and flood hazard area individual permit. Those are all under the Flood Hazard Area Control Act rules. So I guess the applicant was under the perspective that because that doesn't really matter. It's kind of irrelevant at this point because since those LOIs, the DEP has determined that it was regulated. But I guess the applicant's point was, well, this is, they didn't before call it a regulated waterway. They only called it a regulated waterway upon review of their individual permit. The reason they didn't I guess what we're trying to say is the reason they didn't take jurisdiction of that regulated water beforehand is because they had no opportunity or mechanism to do so. An LOI does not determine regulated water jurisdiction.
Right.
So once they got the flood hazard area individual permit in front of them to review, that was the first time DEP had an opportunity to take or not take jurisdiction of regulated waters. And in this case, they did. So the fact that it was previously not mentioned on the LOI does not mean that DEP was saying previously that there were not regulated waters. It didn't. That's not the purpose of an LOI. So I guess we're just want to be clear that, because the fact that they said that there was no regulated water does not mean that there isn't a regulated water. They're just not saying there's a regulated water, because that's not the purpose of an LOI. It's apples and oranges.
Right.
So I think there might be some confusion on the applicant's part in that regard. That's all.
But they withdrew their flood hazard area
Well-
application. So once it's resubmitted, that regulated water should show up.
Yes, and that's correct.
Yeah, that would be my point.
Yes.
I mean, the LOI was done a while ago because it doesn't expire until 2022, if I remember
Right.
correctly. So, I mean, that's an old LOI. Not that much has changed, but like you said, it's just the wetlands, the buffers, and the state open waters.
Correct.
So once they submit that flood hazard area permit, then we will know from the DEP standpoint. But from our standpoint,
Mhm.
it's still considered a stream,
Correct.
and the stream corridor still is applicable.
Correct. The stream corridor ordinance is applicable.
Correct.
Yes.
So another thing that came up at the planning board was the fact that because Hillsborough has an ordinance, the state would take precedent over that, but that's not true, correct? Meaning,
Correct. We, being a home rule state, we have the municipal land use law, and Dave, feel free to chime in and correct me if I say something incorrect. But every municipality in the state of New Jersey absolutely has the right to have a more stringent regulation than the state. Even in our ordinance, it says we can complement state regulations. So we absolutely, to my understanding, have a right to have more stringent regulations than the state does.
Yeah, Mike, let me just add to that. I think whether or not the state preempts the municipality, or if the municipality can be more restrictive, in some cases, the answer is it depends. Depends on the overriding statute and what's in the statute. It's a legal question. It's one that the Environmental Commission doesn't really have to engage in that discussion. It's something that really needs to be hammered out at the planning board.
Okay.
I think the Environmental Commission, your discussion is appropriate in terms of, is this trench water body, is it or is it not a stream corridor? If it is, what does that trigger? Whether or not, again, the township stream corridor ordinance prevails or not, we'll have to work that out at the planning board.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you for clarifying. Neil, does that answer your question? Or-
yeah, so that's something that I guess from a legal standpoint will have to be determined at the planning board. But there also is similar mitigation measures in terms of our ordinance compared to the DEP ordinance, meaning buffer and buffer averaging as well, correct?
Right.
So, meaning there's a 150-foot buffer, but there could be an opportunity similar to the DEP regulations for our ordinance to kind of mitigate certain situations under buffer averaging
Right.
mitigation measures, correct?
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. All I'm saying here is that stream is under the jurisdiction of the stream corridor ordinance. That's I think this commission, well, my interpretation, this commission's interpretation. So what that means is that the applicant has to meet that stream corridor ordinance, and how they choose to go about that, whether it be stream averaging or changing plans or any other remedies available by the ordinance, is up to the applicant. All we're saying is that they have to address the stream corridor ordinance because the stream is applicable.
Okay. And I know we talked also about the drainage features and how the 50 acres also ties in with that. I don't know if Chris or Mike, if you could speak to that.
Oh, yeah, so the 50 acres is interesting. It's something that, was a kind of an old rule that we used to apply many, many years ago as engineers. And DEP actually recognizes that in the Flood Hazard Act at 50 acres, but they say it's still, if they designated, if drainage area is less than 50 acres and it meets certain criteria, then it's not a regulated stream. And this certainly does not meet those criteria. It's not a man-made stream. There's some issues about coastal in there. Our ordinance, nowhere in our ordinance does it say 50-acre drainage area means that our stream corridor ordinance does not apply. Getting back to what Mike said, though, I mean, there are caveats in our ordinance for hardship waivers, which I don't think apply to this project, but I think the buffer averaging could be a way that the developer might be able to apply that and still get in most of the development that he's looking to do. I think it's important to note that my understanding is the Environmental Commission is not against development, but we're for developing following regulations. And we have a stream corridor ordinance because we as a township believe our waterways are important and valuable, and we want to provide them an extra level of protection. And that's why we have a 150-foot buffer instead of a 50-foot buffer. And I think that's something that the township had a lot of foresight in doing many years ago. So I think that's also something to point out.
Did anybody take a look at the letter that came in today through the planning office from Mr. Hurley on Johansson?
I started to look at it. It's
So I guess my,
information in there.
Go
There's
ahead.
a lot of information in there, Debbie.
There is a lot of information in there, and as I said
hard to
to
wade through. Yeah.
as I said to Mr. Maskey today, if I remember correctly, Mr. Hurley grew up in this development, so he knows the history of this development and the flooding in the area. I guess my question is that this did not come in the time frame so that the planning board will see it. But Neil, can you take this? Can you take this to the planning board?
Well, I saw that letter, but so I would imagine that the BORA will issue it to the planning board. Right, Dave?
If you recall at the January planning board meeting, there was a deadline set of the
Oh, I see.
January 22nd, which was Friday.
Yeah, right. But
Anybody-
you have it. So can you take that? Can you bring that up as a? I'm sure Mr. Hurley will probably be at the February 4th.
Yeah, we'll have to discuss that with the attorney.
Okay, all right, that's fine. So
We, as the Environmental Commission, though, I believe we did recommend that the developer look into how his discharge to that 36-inch pipe behind those homes is going to affect that development and the flooding of that development. When we were out there, Debbie, we did not see any entrance to that pipe from the
that's correct.
site.
And that's what his letter says.
All the inlets were blocked up, so there's obviously no water going into that 38-inch pipe,
That's what he said. Correct.
part of the development. And now the developer is going to put in stormwater management, and he's going to start releasing water to that pipe, which I think is what Mr. Hurley's talking about could be problematic. I don't know if it's problematic or not. I haven't done the hydrologic or hydraulic calculations to determine that, but they should be done to ensure that any additional water to that pipe is not going to cause any flooding. I see Mike Ford is listed here on the phone. I don't know if he's listening in on this, but that would be something his group would do.
Right.
Another thing they could do is discharge the water the other way. They can discharge the water to 206, a drainage system along 206, instead of discharging behind those houses. I'm not sure if that's possible. That might require a bit of a redesign and development, but maybe there's a way they could drain there instead, and that would would certainly make those people in those homes happier behind there, because the water's no longer going to be going their way. It's going to be going down 206. And, you know, I think that might be another way to think about it. So.
All right, so I'm gonna issue a follow-up report to the planning board with the information that we just talked about with photos.
Hey, Deb.
Yes, Neil.
Yes, so to take off from where what Chris was saying is, it's kind of hard to determine based on the stormwater calculations what they'll be, because the calculations take into consider right now that the water is going into that 8-inch pipe right now, and we don't know that. So again, kind of, it's like, it's all based on what is going on now is actually going on, and we didn't see that. Do you know what I mean?
Now they have, Debbie, since you and I were out there, they have uncovered that manhole with the grate in it.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they unburied it. It's in the middle of the where all the bamboo was, right where we were looking, where we couldn't find it because it was buried. So
that was at the very end of the walk.
So somebody actually dug it out and exposed it now, but I'm not sure water's getting there anyway, because it's kind of on the other side of that hump. You know, I'm not sure how water's getting there. I would have expected that to be on the other side of that temporary road they have in there, but.
Right.
But yeah, so I think something has to be, an analysis has to be done just to make everybody feel safe about this, I think, you know, and I'm not saying it's going to work or not going to work, but I think someone has to really do the calculations. And it's not just the standard calculations that have been done already, where we've got stormwater that's already going to this pipe, and we're going to put it in stormwater detention, and we're going to reduce the amount that goes into that pipe, because what we saw, it doesn't seem like the water was going in the first place. So like what Neil was saying is, so now we're adding water to a pipe, and we're saying that we're adding less water to the pipe, but really not, because water wasn't going in the first place. And that pipe also is tied into Green Hills, which is the other development of Brooks Boulevard, and water down that brook behind those houses flows into that grate. And then you have a big detention basin there that actually the water is now flowing from that brook into the detention basin into the pipe a different way. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. It's not working.
Is that the detention basin that was compromised?
Well, detention basin is not working the way it's supposed to work. So that's something that needs to be repaired at some point. I don't know who does that. That's a town.
Oh, right.
That's south of the existing development right now, but that was not, that was, excuse me, that was all clogged up, and the water was actually going into the detention basin when we saw it. So that, you know, was an issue from the standpoint of the entire watershed. So if that's working properly, it might have other issues in terms of stormwater and the pipe, and, you know, it's kind of like a bigger picture.
It is. It's a regional thing, and in my, you know, and I said this to, I think, Mike the other day on the phone. It's like when you see traffic reports, you know, this development says we've got traffic, it's not going to impact. We've got traffic, it's not going to impact. When you put all of this together, it's an impact, and it needs to be looked on a more regional basis than it does on an individual basis. And I feel the same way about the stormwater.
Right, and we're not saying that if all things are working the way they should be, that, you know, it can't work. But what we're saying and what we saw is that that doesn't seem to be the case right now.
It's not working correctly. That's correct. It's not working correctly.
Well, I mean, I couldn't say it. I don't really know how it was designed. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts there, and you know, as a faculty member at Rutgers, I said, wow, I thought this would be a really cool study, but you know, there's a lot of stuff going on there, and that really needs to be examined thoroughly I think to ensure that the people living on Johansson Ave aren't going to get flooded out as a
more so than they are right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're going to get flooded out because you're getting flooded out now, but is it going to get worse?
You're not going to add to it, correct?
Yeah. So And
Right.
Rob was trying to figure out how to stop them from getting flooded out now, but that's a whole different story,
That
unrelated.
is a whole different story. That is a course of a different color. All right. So I lost my notes. So I will be sending a follow-up report, as I said, to the planning board. To let them know our discussion on that. Okay. Do we have any new business to consider? We have no correspondence received. Go ahead. Neil, do you have anything?
Do you have to take comments from the public on that last issue, or?
We're gonna open it up again.
Okay.
We are.
Yeah, I don't have anything else, Deb.
No? All right, we have no consideration of maps and documents. Mr. Kinsler, can we open it up to see if there's any comments from the public?
Sure. Okay, if anybody from the public has a comment on these, on matters, you can please raise your hand. Again, state your name and address for the record, spelling your last name. Now would be the time. Well, Chairwoman, I see no hands, so I guess you could proceed.
Thank you.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I was a little surprised.
Spoke too soon.
Ms. Swati, if you want to state your name and address and spell your name, please.
Hi, it's Marianne Sawade. My address is 142 Johansson Avenue.
Thank you.
I just want to congratulate you all on your appointments. I do want to thank you for all your time in going to walk the property. And it really feels to us that you care and you're trying to look at this problem that we see, and not just voting quickly on it. So we do appreciate that. One of the things I wanted to say, you were discussing the application, how it was withdrawn. I did look on the DEP site. They withdrew the same time that they had claimed that DEP took jurisdiction of that waterway. So I suppose that was why. I agree.
When was that?
That was in October of 2020. I'd love to see the documentation from DEP when they told them that they were taking jurisdiction of that waterway. I feel like the information we're seeing is limited, and I'm curious as to why the township wouldn't be copied on correspondence from DEP, since a lot of the decisions that have to be made are based on what they're also finding. Is that a normal procedure, or is it just what the applicant provides to you? I'm not sure because of the situation with the court being involved, and the only, this is an affordable housing situation, but it's only environmental concerns that would affect their plan. So is it required that the DEP copy the township or no?
Mike, can you answer that?
That's actually a very good question. I'm not sure, is the bottom line answer. I'm trying to recall back in my experience, when I get comment letters or review letters back from DEP, if they CC anybody on them. And I don't know. Not that I recall, but should we get a copy? I guess it's something we can look into, Debbie.
I did
Dave,
know.
does Dave know anything about public notifications, how that works? I don't see why we shouldn't get a copy. I don't see why.
Get copies of obviously notices that they're applying, and we might get a copy of the final document. I don't recall on any application seeing interim comments, or
I would agree with
correspondence
that.
back and forth between
Yeah.
DEP and the applicant. We see the final product usually.
Yeah, my
I agree
experience
with
as
that.
well.
Yeah.
I'm just.
Is it something that is it public information though that could be asked of the DEP or no?
Chris is shaking his head yes.
Yeah, the Freedom of Information Act, they can get access to that, but typically what DEP would do, and I'm not sure how they do it with the floodplain hazard permits or the LOIs anymore, but people would send in comments, like the public would send in comments to DEP on the permit application. DEP would issue the permit, but they would also include a response to comments, usually. So I don't know if they do that. I know they do that with stormwater permits and wastewater permits. I'm not sure if they still do that with these types of permits. So.
And Chris, you're talking about actual permit applications, not
Yeah.
law.
Yeah.
I know they still do that with when they're making new legislation, making new regs, but I don't know if they do that still anymore with comments for an application.
But this application was withdrawn. It's not like it was even finalized, and they may not, you may not get noticed on that until, it was withdrawn. There was no final action taken on it.
I think it's
Maybe data miner has something in there. I don't know. You could also maybe, contact that group down in there and find out for what reason it was withdrawn.
I'm waiting on an answer on that. I've submitted an Oprah.
Okay.
I've spoken to a couple of people that didn't know. They said, you got to talk to this person, you got to talk to that person. So I'm going through the loop. I'm trying to find out why it was withdrawn. I went on data miner. And I figured it was because of the waterway was, they took jurisdiction of the waterway, so that changed their plan, which I also read means that their LOI is invalid, perhaps. But you were also saying maybe not, that the waterway might not affect that. And they're also open. There's a vernal habitat review that seems to be open. I'm trying to confirm that. So that person in charge of that, I've reached out to that person. I'm awaiting, just kind of seeing what the status is of that.
Right.
Actually, Mary Ann, we were wondering ourselves as we walked around out there if there were vernal pools out there that had been mapped by DEP, and I did not look into that. But
there's
that
potential vernal pools.
Yeah.
That could be another issue if there are vernal pools that have been mapped out there. So.
Yeah, Chris, I did look up at that, and like Mary Ann stated, DEP documented potential vernal pool habitat.
Right. That's what it says. Right.
Just for clarification, I think the vernal pool determination, and I think it coincides with what Mrs. Sowade's saying. I believe that's DEP looks at that as part of the freshwater wetland permit application review. And again, I believe that both the freshwater wetland and the flood hazard permits were both withdrawn, though I'm not sure. That's just my assumption. But that being said, I would say that the LOI itself is good and valid till its expiration date of 2023. Because again, that's its own separate permit application that they did a while ago, and they got approval of it. DEP signed off on that. Again, that's just for wetland stay-up and waters and wetland transition areas. Pretty much the boundary of those three items. So that LOI is good and valid till 2023 regarding those three items.
I wanted to make reference to an email from Mark Harris at the DEP, and it was only to Mr. Offernod. So that's why I was asking about why, we're not all copied. Mark Harris made specific comment saying the waterway would now be an additional 50 feet, but there was no reference to what that meant. Like, was it an addition to 50 feet? What did he mean, 100? So there's no correspondence to see further. They just gave us that piece of the email thread, and I'm just, that's where my thoughts are going, is what pieces of this puzzle are we not seeing? But I guess in the end, the DEP would probably issue, if they issue a final approval, it would be very detailed, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you said that the DEP talked about an additional 50 feet.
The wording on the email, it's on I know it's from the planning board documents from the last meeting. The email, it was in a 20. It was a bunch of pages, but I went through all the pages.
Right.
And just that one email said it would be an additional 50 feet. And then when I was talking, asking Mr. Offernord questions, I know that he had said the stream is a separate feature from the wetlands. It is its own feature. So that also made me question, is there different setbacks for the wetlands and then that feature? That feature seems to be on the edge of the wetlands. Is there no wetlands beyond that feature? Because their 50 feet seems to be counted from the river, or from the stream, I mean. So I don't know, it's hard for me to interpret it. I'm not an expert, obviously. I'm just reading this information, trying to interpret it the best I can as, you know, and I rely on you guys to, you know, kind of help me out with trying to figure this out. But
Yeah, sure. I think I'm looking at the email that you were referring to from the applicant as part of an attachment to his letter.
yeah,
I don't see the word addition. I see, you know, it says, quote unquote, there's a stable water within the delineated wetlands that will also require a 50-foot riparian zone.
will also require, that's what the wording was, will also
Yeah.
require.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, what that means is, yes, each resource, whether, you know, under the Freshwater Wetlands Protection Act or the Flood Hazard Area Protection Act, gets its own buffer. The LOI established a wetland buffer and the 50-foot wetland transition area from that wetland boundary. That's done, that's set from the LOI approved by DEP, and we agree with that. The separate issue is the flood hazard area regulations and regulated waters and their associated riparian zones. Two separate, you know, riparian zone is a completely separate thing than the wetland transition area. Now they can overlap, but jurisdictionally they map them as independent features. So in this case, from that email, DEP is saying that that regulated water, they're determining has a 50-foot riparian zone from the top of bank of that regulated water. And the reason they're saying that's 50 feet is because it's not a C1 waterway. So it doesn't have a I think a C1 waterway is 300 feet. And the DEP is saying that it's an intermediate, well, no, I don't want to confuse them. DEP is saying that's a 50-foot riparian zone, not a 300-foot riparian zone, because the water is not a C1 waterway, which we agree with that it's not a C1 waterway, and that a 50-foot riparian zone would be applicable.
Yes, no, I realized that. I looked through that again. I was looking at the North Branch Raritan River is a C1 waterway. And when I saw that, I determined, looking, sometimes it's hard to interpret all this information, thought that the Dukes Brook was a tributary of that, when in fact, it's the South Branch and North Branch Raritan River that converge to create the Raritan River, and the Dukes Brook is a tributary of Raritan River, which is not a C1. So that's where my mistake came in. But I also wanted to, there's this 50-acre drainage area. I'm not really sure how they determined that only that property would drain there. There is a pipeline aqueduct that doesn't seem to be included in the calculations at all. It's not noted on that map, that area that they have on that map for the drainage area. On the DEP website, there is a noted pipeline aqueduct that is underground, and it connects the Dukes Brook from Dukes Farm side over 206, connects it right over to this property and drains. I only assume that it's draining towards this property because that's the natural curve and the way that the water goes. So water goes towards my neighborhood and through my neighborhood, and stormwater. So I'm not obviously an expert again at this, but I'm assuming that it goes that way. So how could they not calculate all the water coming from Dukes Brook on Dukes Farm side? I'm not an expert, but I just assume that water is coming from there, and also adding to this land, this wetland is filtering this water and dispersing it. If you go on the NJGEO site, that shows the pipeline, it's identified, it's labeled, and it shows it coming from the main Dukes Brook, you know, across the way.
Miss Sawade, what website is that?
The NJGO website for the
Oh.
DEP.
GeoWeb?
GeoWeb, yes.
And was it showing? I'm sorry.
On, if you look at the property, there's a little highlight of green on the stream corridor on the you know, drive easement up Campus Drive. It's an underground aqueduct pipeline, and it's labeled as such. If you click on that little green line, it shows you that it's, and you can see the stream from across 206 from Dukes Brook running straight across 206. I don't know if I guess it goes under 206, and I drove by to really see. It looks like it might run under, but I don't think that's a bridge. I'm not sure. Anyway, it looks like it goes straight across 206, and then there's a pipe aqueduct that was built underground under that Campus Drive driveway, and it's highlighted a little green line. If you click on it, it'll tell you it's a pipeline for the Dukes Brook tributary. Dukes Brook stream.
Right. Yeah, it's a, so you're talking about it over that portion of Campus Drive, it shows a little green line. You click on that portion, little green line, says pipeline, right? And then
Correct.
on either end of that little green line, it's a blue line. but
Correct.
It's off of the, and it's, I think it shows it as a stream or river or whatever.
Yeah, 2002, it was determined a stream corridor, the Dukes Brook tributary. And it says 2002, so I'm assuming that's when it was identified as stream.
Well, yeah, that green line, when it says pipeline, all that is was a culvert that they put in like a corrugated metal pipe for that. It's a, right now it's a cleared like access way. So that was just a continuation pipe that was put in to continue the, so they use it as like a roadway crossing, like a temporary roadway crossing. So that's all that is.
And water doesn't go through it then? Is that what you're
No,
saying?
water does, water, no, yes.
Okay.
But it's like a corrugated 18-inch metal pipe that they do them all the time for construction sites and areas that are like, or, you know, temporarily disturbed or semi-permanently disturbed for, you know, for like a dirt road or something for trucks to get over. They put the pipe on to keep the water flowing underneath.
Right.
I'm assuming that's what happened in this case, but it all is, it's like I said, it's a corrugated, I can't say that word, corrugated 18-inch or 20-inch pipe that is just for the driveway, really.
Okay.
But the way it's shown, the drainage area is shown is it looks like it's draining towards 206 is the way it's shown. So even though, you know, you believe it's flowing to the back of your development, the drainage area looks like it's flowing towards 206. That's why it ends at the cul-de-sac there. And so the water is going to go on the other side of the highway and then loop back around and eventually get to the Raritan. You can see that in one of in that letter that he provided us. There's a figure in there. So I think that's what I was looking at. I originally thought it was flowing back towards Johansson. That whole area is so flat, it's hard to tell which way it's flowing, but it looks like he's got a figure in here, figure 2, the landscape project, ecological sciences, in his letter that he provided. And it looks like from there, it's going across 206, hooking back into Dukes Brook, and then coming back across 206 down a little bit further and wind up going into Raritan. So I'm not too sure that the drainage area is incorrect that they've delineated there. So
Okay. I mean, I know the water drains towards my house from the property because I have a swale behind my house that I have to maintain. It's probably got about, I don't know, 6-8 inches of water in it right now, just sitting there. And I have a big puddle, like I won't call it a vernal pool because I don't know what it is, but it's a very large area that's always wet right behind my house in the woods, and that runs towards my house. So I don't know, maybe is there an elevation in the middle that makes it go towards 206 from one side and towards my house to the other side? I don't know, but I know the water runs to my house from the immediate area. I don't know. So I don't know what direction it's flowing, but I just thought it was worth noting. Also, if I may, there's, I was looking back I did a title search. There was an old site map. The new site maps have this unnatural mound right next to the water feature, elevated mound. The developer had made a comment several meetings ago. I don't know exactly which meeting, where he started construction when he had approval for the industrial project. It has a lot of dirt that got mounded up right there next to the wetland border. And it almost looks like it changed the course of the line over time. I don't know if that's historic fill. Is that something that would be worth looking into, or is that not relevant in this matter?
If it came from on site, I wouldn't necessarily call it fill. I don't
know
so.
where.
I mean, it certainly could have changed the course of the flow of the water on the property. But I don't know that I would call it
There's been
fill.
some significant grading back there, Debbie. I mean, there were some mounds back there that looked like someone just dumped spoils. And I don't know if that was from his construction earlier or people just dumping back there. I don't know. We saw
I don't know if we have any way of knowing that.
right where we parked, we saw that, Mike and Neil, right? There were mounds of dirt there, so I think there's been dumping going on there, or maybe there's earth movement earlier on. And I'm sure it's such a flat area. It doesn't take much to change the way the water is flowing.
I agree.
So that could have switched it so it flows the other way.
That's true. I mean, is there any way of telling whether there was dumping or whether there's been fill brought in, as opposed to, the mound just being from the original construction that they've started?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Metropolito on that one.
I was looking at him. Not that he can see that I was looking at him, but.
The easiest way to tell if it's imported fill material would to have somebody do a soil analysis to see, and then do soil borings on the site to see if it's the same, soil structure. Somebody could also do, I don't know how good the aerial photography is. You could do an aerial photography, search of that area, and if it's been done close enough together, you could see that, oh, look, there was, you could see where, a low spot would appear, from them regrading an area.
Yeah, I don't know how old the topo is for the topography is. They usually fly that and then topography out of that. I don't know if there's any older stuff from the 80s back there. I'm sure we had topo of Hillsborough in the 80s. You might be able to compare that to current day topo.
Steve, when you do like a phase one, you usually go out and you get the aerial photos. What are those, like every 10 years?
It depends. Historically, yeah, roughly every 10 years or so, because that's what the USDA was doing, the flyovers.
Okay.
Nowadays, with all the satellite imagery, you could purchase more recent, more closer together aerial photos. You can get photogrammetric surveys done, but
I mean, that's certainly an option, I guess you could do to see whether that was just from the construction or not.
Let me ask you this. I mean, Campus Associates, they either did a phase one when they bought the property as part of the property transfer, or they're doing a phase one for this proposed development, right? Isn't there a phase one out there, or should there be a phase one out there somewhere?
I would hope so.
Have we seen any?
We asked for a phase one? I don't know. Where's my original report?
I don't recall.
But he owned this property forever, this guy.
Has he?
He's owned it for a long time, right?
I don't know.
I went back on all the deeds. The next point I wanted to ask, or next thing I wanted to ask you guys about, is the conservation easement that's on this property.
We do not have it.
There was a conservation easement prepared by Thomas Miller. And 6 months later, they asked the township to vacate it. But I did not see anything signed by Hillsborough vacating it. Maybe I missed it. But
Yeah, it was, Ms. Wade, yeah, there was a conservation easement. It was attached to a particular development. The developer owner came back and they basically cut the project in half. So it was determined that the conservation easement was no longer needed and the township vacated the easement.
okay.
I see that there was an environmental impact statement done, but I'm used to government regs. I don't know the precedents of phase ones and environmental impact statements. I work with NEPA, not
Right.
residential.
We did not ask for phase one in the original report. I mean, we can certainly add it to this one if you think that's important. I mean, that might be a good idea from the fill standpoint.
Is an environmental impact statement a lower precedent than that, or?
It asks for, so that's our environmental impact statement that they, based on our ordinance of what we ask for. So that's certainly different than what gets put into a phase one. Steve, is I correct? Am I talking out of turn here?
No, that's correct. You know, if we have a ordinance, it would be, unless our ordinance specifically references the ASTM standard for phase ones, I would assume they would be different.
And, you know, when the planning board, Neil, gets to, you know, looking at the master plan, you know, we can make a recommendation that maybe our ordinance for our EIS be updated to include more things relative to that fall into the same lines as a phase one.
Right. So, I mean, the answer to the question is it's not a phase one.
It is not a phase one. No, we can ask for phase. I'll put that in the next report. We're asked for phase one on property.
I have one last question, if I may.
Go ahead.
With regards to the requirements for building, are we going by industrial zoning requirements or residential, or is it a mixture of both?
It's residential. It's an overlay district. So if basically it gives a property owner two options, they could either build under the underlying industrial zone regulations or the residential. They can't do both. It has to be one or the other. In this case, they've chosen to go with the residential.
Okay. What is the height of the buildings they're looking at? Is it 45 feet? 48 was the variance, I think, for a fancy roof line or something. And the zone I3 zoning, it's 30 feet, which would be a nice two-story building, which wouldn't be so obtrusive.
They're allowed to go 40 to 45 feet. And they're proposing 44. It's 3 stories.
So that's not a variance.
No,
No, okay.
just, but there's a slight variance with it, with an accessory building that, because it's a lower requirement,
Right.
clubhouse.
Right.
Okay.
Does that answer your questions, Marianne?
Yes, and I appreciate your recommendation for the 150-foot buffer from the stream corridor. You know, I know that affects their plans. I know they just want to make money on this property. I understand they've been dumping money into it. I just hope they hear us and will seriously consider what this development will mean for us. You know, it does get us emotional and it's frustrating trying to trust the developer and the planner, you know, and the planning of this. But as you know, the stormwater system is not working to par. The inlet that's noted behind my house isn't there, or it's buried. I've never seen it. They keep, you know, putting things on their plan saying, hey, it's all there, and it's not. I wonder if they're even really looking, but I think they are now, you know. I just met 2 of their surveyors who just put out the last report. They were on my property. I walked out and said hello. And they said to me, you know, we were told to beware of the neighbors. They've been hostile. I said, we're not hostile. We're passionate. We just want what's best for what, you know, our current situation. I mean, this building is not built yet. There's nobody living there yet. They're not residents yet. We are residents. We've been here since 1958. You know, so we just want to be heard.
Right.
And we thank you for all your recommendations.
You're very welcome. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kinsler, do we have anybody else?
All right, I see no other hands raised, so I assume you could proceed at this time.
Okay. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll second.
It's 8:30. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate everybody's time tonight.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good night.
Sure.
You
Good
too.
night.
All right, everyone. Thank you
Good
for.
Thank you,
your
Frank.
time.
Thank you. Thanks, Fred.
Yeah, you're welcome, Deb. I don't know if, I know Dave didn't maybe say anything to you, but they need this report kind of quick, don't they?
Yeah, they do tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure.
No,
I
it
assume-
was- yeah.
I assume he told you, but being in all these meetings, I'm like, oh, I know
No.
that the attorney said, oh my gosh, they need it. So I just wanted
Yeah.
to make you aware.
Neil
I
says,
assume-
Deb, I hate to tell you, but you got like 24 hours to turn it around. So
Good luck
I've
with
already
that.
drafted it. I'll finish it up tomorrow morning.
All right,
and
great.
Send it over there. Thank you.
All right, guys,
for
thanks
that.
for everything.
Have a good
Welcome
night,
aboard, Rob.
everybody.
Nice meeting you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Nice to
Same
meet